Tracy, you ready? Okay, we'll again call to order the meeting of Sanford City Commission work session for Monday, September 8th, 2025. Commissioner Alston is on his way, and we have Assistant City Manager Radzak with us tonight because of the Mr. Bonaparte had a death in the family. Mr. Radzak, first thing.
Okay, on the agenda is the consent of the assignment of assumption of lease at 350 Seminole Boulevard. That's the Trailhead building. Used to be Philomena's Pizza. Me and Attorney Green are working on this item closely together. I'll turn it over to her to provide some legal, and then for as far as the lease, I could update you on where we are with that.
So the present leaseholder, Colomidio, is presently involved in some legal issues which brought to rise the selling of the property. There's a pending sale. As part of that pending sale, we've been in talk with the buyers to assign the present existing lease over to the buyers, also to extend a lease over to them. I just wanted to bring it to Mayor and the Commissioner's attention so that when we get to that point, there are no concerns or objections to simply assigning the lease that is already existing with Colomidio. And Assistant City Manager is correct. We've been working closely with not only the existing leaseholder, but also with the buyers to make sure that this is a smooth transition.
Is the lease changing, or is it just assigning the existing lease?
It's assigning the existing lease, but we are also in talks with regard to, an Assistant City Manager can get into this as well, to increase some of the rental amounts, because those have not been touched for quite a long time.
Okay.
They've also requested for financing purposes to extend the lease to 2100, the year 2100, for financing purposes. So we've accommodated that. However, it comes with that as a rate and an increase in land lease payments. So we'll be doing that for, we've tentatively agreed on the increase in payments, and then it'll go on from there. First 3 years is going to be a certain amount, and then it'll taper off to the CPI for years after the third year.
When does the current lease expire?
2072, I believe.
So adding 28 years?
Yeah, I think they needed to show the bank that they had a 75-year land lease in effect.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the 2100.
Any questions?
Nope. Was it a tropical storm outside?
So what we'll do is we'll bring the assignment of the lease to the commission as soon as possible and get that presented to you. But we just wanted to provide you with the information and get that moving.
Okay.
Okay.
Once there's actually a closing and everything goes through, we'll bring the assignment forward.
We'll check the status again in 2100.
I'll be here.
Okay. Goldsboro CRA then?
Okay, to provide an update on the Goldsboro CA, we have our Economic Development Director, Brady Lessard. He's coming up to provide an update to the Commission.
All right, thank you, Mr. Radzak, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and start by going back to the original conversation we had on this, kind of vet through some of these slides pretty rapidly on some of the things that we had general agreement on. But more importantly and more excitedly, I look forward to updating you all on where we are today and where we will be tomorrow. So again, to start, this was just our opening slide of our last presentation. And please stop me at any point during this presentation if you have any questions. But we will certainly be available to answer any questions at the end of the presentation as well. So this was just our original slide showing kind of the diversity of housing stock folks. This is a previous project up in the top right-hand corner that the city had done commemorating Goldsboro being founded in 1891. That's currently in place. Historic Goldsboro Main Street will become much more relevant to this conversation as we proceed tonight. Next slide, Chris, please. Again, when we discussed a traditional CRA, there were a number of partners that would need to come to the table for that to be effective. The city of Sanford, obviously, Seminole County, obviously, the great state of Florida, which for any of you that are following what's happening in Tallahassee, there's quite a bit of consternation related to CRAs. Predominantly, those questions are coming out of South Florida, but not to disparage our neighbors to the south. I think it is important to talk about the fact that traditional CRAs are certainly in the headlines as it relates to Tallahassee. One of the agencies that we've leaned, Pamela and I have leaned heavily on throughout this process, is the Seminole County Property Appraiser. David Johnson's office has been tremendously helpful in keeping us from expending tax dollars and gathering data that we all own. So that's important to know. These were the 7 steps to creating that traditional CRA. I'm not, unless the commission desires otherwise, going to go through each of them. But as you look at these steps, there are a number of consultants that would need to be engaged, and I believe our last approximation of what a traditional CRA would cost to set up by the finding of necessity and all of the other steps that would need to occur is somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. Next slide, Chris. Again, it wraps up with the establishment of a redevelopment trust fund to finance implementation of the plan. This is falls more into Cynthia Lindsay's department as it relates to our current CRA that's in place here downtown. But again, $300,000 or $400,000 to effectuate the traditional CRA. I'm pleased to report that we're not expending any dollars on consultants to date. The original boundary that we had talked about, and I don't want to take any sort of ownership credit for this. This was after discussing with a number of folks in the community of Goldsboro how they viewed the Goldsboro community. Now, some of that is outside of those original boundaries that were established in 1891, and I would primarily steer you to Academy Manor. Mr. Bentley is in the audience. Kenneth Bentley, for the record, is in the audience, was very instrumental, along with Commissioner Wiggins. Commissioner Wiggins put me in touch with a number of folks in the community that we wanted to get that input from. Next slide, Chris. So the original boundary, those are just the dollars that were generated. I won't bore you with the details. I will have kind of a summary for you at the end of today's presentation. But that original boundary showed a projected taxable value of $4.4 million. And that was on a stretch between 2022 and 2031. Next slide, Chris. So then there was discussion over the years about an extended boundary. I know that Commissioner Wiggins, before Commissioner Wiggins, Commissioner Williams, the mayor, were primarily, and maybe Commissioner Austin to a lesser extent on the time frame wise, had talked about entertaining the idea of a traditional CRA in the Goldsboro community for many, many years. There was always the reluctance to accept the fact that downtown would have a CRA that was making infrastructure and investments that weren't being afforded in the Goldsboro community because of the lack of a traditional CRA. So over the years, it was discussed to extend those boundaries. In my discussions with the community, I wouldn't say it's offensive, but it does defeat the purpose of a Goldsboro-specific hybrid CRA action plan. So I think the commission was in agreement last time we presented. There was a general agreement that we would move with that original boundary. The next slide will just show you that if you do broaden that boundary and bring in some of that industrial product, some of that St. John's Parkway product, yes, it does increase taxes, but no, the community does not identify that as Goldsboro proper. Next slide. So just a side-by-side showing of the original boundary versus the extended boundary. Again, our extended boundary includes that industrial, and I will share with you off topic a little bit that there's some tremendous product coming online in the Persimmon corridor, in the Airport Boulevard corridor. Many of you all will hopefully be able to attend a groundbreaking that we're very excited about that occurs in, Pamela, when is that? October, November? So it's free lunch, and I see Miss Osborne's here, so she will be in attendance. We joke about that quite a bit. She always likes to say, well, Brady, are they serving food or giving away any goodies? And so sometimes I mislead her and tell her that they are just to make sure she shows up. But it is a very exciting product that's going vertical in that corridor. Next slide, please, Chris. So as we discussed last time, again, we are not married to an acronym here. GREAT was the Goldsboro Redevelopment Entertainment and Arts Tract, TRACT. We had also considered GRIT, the Goldsboro Redevelopment Investment Tract. I believe, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Bentley, but there was a general consensus after our presentation at the Goldsboro Main Street meeting that GREAT was the acronym that they would like to employ if the commission so desires to move forward. So the Goldsboro Main Street infrastructure that I mentioned to you last time was admittedly speculative. I knew that the Goldsboro Main Street organization existed, but my ask of you all last time we discussed this was give me the opportunity to go out, speak with Main Street, see if their infrastructure allowed for them to consider managing a project like this, a program like this. I'm pleased to report that Mr. Bentley and the board sent me a letter recently, well, about a month ago, actually more than a month ago, where they made that commitment. There were continued conversations on the Main Street side, but they've made the commitment in our preliminary discussions to administer this. So effectively, we're talking no additional city staff. I will share with you that Ms. Schofield, Julie Schofield, was at the Main Street meeting where I presented. She serves as a staff liaison to the Goldsboro Main Street Board. So I would strongly encourage that we continue that relationship as far as having someone from staff on the board if the commission decides to proceed. The Main Street group was in fair agreement with the primary goal of this. Festivals, arts, entertainment, celebrating the history of Goldsboro, and it's an interesting history. Of note, Mr. Bentley and I were on Channel 6 today, and I learned some things from his interview. I'm sure he didn't learn anything from my portion of the interview, but I will say that there's some interesting history that Main Street and that community is very excited to celebrate. There was also significant discussion about the addition of art, hardscape art, similar to what we have here in the downtown corridor that we're standing in today, which would invite, in my opinion, a more robust conversation between our Public Arts Commission and Main Street, thereby through the Goldsboro neighborhood. My default position in life is velocity to implementation. I think that talking about things is wonderful, but getting things implemented is of equal importance, if not greater importance. So the velocity to implementation was something that we were focused on as we fine-tuned this project. So here's our recommendation. So the Goldsboro Hybrid CRA, and yes, I will continue to call it a CRA. Yes, it's not a traditional CRA through the great state of Florida, but it is a term that warrants consideration in the Goldsboro community. This is a project that all the partnerships I showed you earlier, the Seminole County Partnership, the Great State of Florida Partnership, are not necessary in this case. This is a City of Sanford initiative. So in short, we can call it what we want. But the interesting thing in the Main Street organization, as I presented over at the West Side Center, kind of bought into this. So we've got significantly limited resources as compared to our downtown CRA, and that's just a function of economics. I was taught at a very young age that math never lies, numbers do not lie. So what we've done is we've tried to take significantly less resources and maintain the impact that those resources would have. So the yellow area represents historic Goldsboro Boulevard. Main Street, and as we formalize this in the form of an ordinance, if the commission decides to proceed, would be gearing all those resource expenditures, at least for year 1 through 5, in that historic Goldsboro Boulevard. The most impact for your dollars. And when I say your dollars, it's their dollars. Because remember, this is all designed on a portion of the taxes paid by this community, having those dollars spent in this community. So it's a tactical redeployment of assets that community produces. So again, there's your Goldsboro corridor. That road to my right is French Avenue, and it runs all the way down to just short of the Crooms Academy turn there, so Persimmon. Next slide, Chris, please. Back to this picture that we found many years ago. It was interesting, as Channel 6 interviewed us today, to hear Mr. Bentley, and not just Mr. Bentley, these are other folks in the community who've told me about this place. Actually, Commissioner Williams was the first person that told me about the juke joint right across from what was once Lake and now is Clark from the police station. So Our goal is to be realistic, but our goal is also to make that impact in that stretch. And the vast majority of those businesses that you see listed there were either on historic, at the time it was called 13th Street, but they were either on that street or right adjacent to that corridor. So our goal is to have that type of vibrance brought back, and it gets us to our next slide, Chris. So next steps. So funding, I'm happy to say that Cynthia Lindsay has been tremendous in assisting in the identification of the funding mechanism we will use. That funding, again, we want to tie it to some sort of TIF increase moving forward so the community truly knows. Now, admittedly, the impact on an annual basis is not going to be as significant as it has been in certain years in downtown Sanford. Remember, when we founded the original downtown CRA, those first couple of years, there wasn't that spike. So what we'll do, again, with the commission's blessing, is build into our ordinance a funding increase as the neighborhood, that Goldsboro map that I'm showing you, increases along with it. So the community will every year see that progress in a manageably understood chart, so to speak. But it'll be an exciting, just like it is for our downtown CRA today. Hey, what's our funding going to be next year? Well, it's based on last year's David Johnson numbers, so that it becomes a source of community pride. Implementation, and let me jump to oversight first. So the oversight is primarily going to be this community, the Main Street Goldsboro infrastructure. And again, this is all in deference to what the commission decides, but in meeting with the Main Street folks, they're willing to take this on. Now, they will also share with you that they want guidance going in and guidance along the way. So from an oversight, the organization that we've identified as most apt, although this commission is also, and I mentioned last time, you can create a new board if you would like to administer the program. Certainly up to the commission, and that's, again, some of the guidance I'm here looking for tonight. But on the implementation front, we are, I'm happy to say, we are ahead of schedule. We're under budget. The implementation, back to that velocity conversation, implementation, I look at this as a program that can start January 1. I'm suggesting that from a operational side, from a funding side, it will be based on Cynthia's calendar year. But operationally, I think it's very difficult sometimes for folks in the community, our downtown CRA or this proposed hybrid, to understand a fiscal year versus a calendar year. Calendar year tends to be more digestible from a festival perspective, things of that nature. So that's a suggestion that we discussed with Main Street. Lastly, I'm here to hear from the commission. Are there any concerns? One of the concerns that I brought up to Main Street, and they tended to agree, was potentially grants moving forward if this program is embarked on by the commission. Perhaps there's a limitation of any sort of Main Street funding, any of these dollars going to, let's say, amplified music. Not that I don't like amplified music, but you look at that compressed corridor we talked about, there are significantly more residential stock adjacent to, we have folks living on historic Goldsboro Boulevard. Yes, we have some living upstairs and in other places along First Street, but this is a significantly more residential front/commercial. The commercial is actually a minor element in many of those blocks. So those are some of the suggestions we would like to build into the enabling ordinance that we give the Main Street folks. With that, I would turn it over to the commission for any questions.
Questions?
Can you go back to the map, Brady?
Sure. That one there, Chris. There.
That one?
There we go.
Okay, so we're pulling in Crooms Academy, but there's a residential section below that, Dixie and Roosevelt, I believe, residential.
So, Commissioner, great question. Crooms Academy was brought in by vocal choice. I think.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, the land south of there, that's predominantly Seminole County properties.
County property.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, makes sense.
And what's the thought process there?
Of not including the Seminole County properties?
Well, of including them?
Mr. Bentley
included.
would probably,
We're not,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah, we're not including that,
Section below
yes.
Crooms that's not
But-
included.
but Crooms Academy is a significant part of the story. There's no tax revenue generated there, obviously. There's no tax revenue from any churches or certified 501c3 type operations. But this is what the community has agreed they define as Goldsboro proper.
So do we have an approximate amount of tax?
So in speaking with Ms. Lindsay, we've got to walk before we can run. And in this case, I suggest we start with a crawl, but it's not necessarily a crawl. And I'm not being coy in answering the question, but we're looking at a baseline of about $75,000, Cynthia. I say that happily because we're going to see that incremental improvement very quickly. And again, we'll build this into the ordinance. But let's shift gears to what the funding is over there currently as it relates to Main Street. If you start bifurcating what Sanford is doing in this regard, the Main Street funding is currently at what, Cynthia, 35 and change? About $36,000 and change. So we're immediately doubling that funding effectively as a city if you all decide to proceed.
So we're doing this only to fund Main Street, not to help?
No, sir. So Main Street will administer this program for us. In other words, they won't, anyone in the community, whether it's a commercial or residential person in that yellowed area there, would not come to the city commission and say, hey, I would like to apply for a grant for X, Y, or Z. They would be operating directly with Main Street as an organization with our staff liaison on the board.
So we're talking about $75,000 initially.
Correct.
What do we expect that the cap could be?
So extrapolating out to 2031, I could see this double once again, and that's being very realistic. And again, in the enabling ordinance, I think it's important that the city retains a significant amount of, I don't want to use the word control, but a significant amount of input of how that grows. Because quite frankly, Commissioner, to your point, I could see year one, and this is another question I was going to ask you all, would we want to see these dollars roll over as they currently do in our downtown CRA? My personal opinion would be yes, but the commission may have a completely different view of that. So, because I think in year 1 through 3, maybe even 1 through 4, you're going to have a difficult time as a Main Street newly functioned and impaneled with this responsibility, deploying $75,000 a year. That's my personal thought.
So I do think it needs to be modeled like the current CRA, where we still have a vote and the final
Approval of the grants.
I am I don't know. On a night where we're talking about needing more funding, we're also talking about giving away funding.
Respectfully, City Commissioner, I view this as again, a tactical redeployment of assets.
Right.
The model that we're discussing, these are dollars in the community that we would be reinvesting in the community. But I do hear your point on overall budgetary constraints.
But $100,000 a year would pay for a firefighter, would pay for a police officer.
Absolutely correct.
So we have to be mindful of that. I did not expect, when we originally discussed the CRA model for Goldsboro, to be just for throwing parties.
Oh,
Let me finish. I would like to see some fake-aid grants like we currently do. I would like to see some beautification like we currently do, more than having parties.
I tend to agree, and Commissioner, Mr. Bentley's here because I don't want to speak for the Main Street's vision of how these dollars are invested. I will say that when I mentioned festivals, there was discussions of higher-end jazz-type vibes, things that would draw people back to a commercial corridor. And I neglected to mention facade grants. Facade grants will remain part of this, and that's why I was thrilled that Ms. Schofield was at the meeting, because she has in her lexicon that expertise. So facade grants, things of that nature. But this is great input, because I do want to make sure the end result of tonight's presentation to you all is, please, give me direction. I don't like expending any city resources if there's not an opportunity for success at the end. So the next step is really sitting down with Ms. Green's office and putting these parameters together, what's allowed on the grant side of things, what's not allowed on the grant side of things, and really formalizing the relationship with Main Street.
So, with that being said, I would like to see a formula where the monies every year are predetermined. The percentage goes towards the facade, and a percentage goes towards these other aspects.
We can absolutely accomplish that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't go back and better explain the current city commitment to Main Street is $36,000. So tonight, we're talking about not a $75,000 commitment, but an additional 36-ish commitment, which dollars are dollars. I 100% agree.
Wait, I thought it was an additional 75,000.
No,
I'm looking at
again,
I'm
that's,
looking at Ms. Lindsay.
that's, well, that really I would leave to the commission's direction, because in conversations with Main Street, they're open to the conversation on either front. I would suggest rolling it in under this program, but that's fully left to the commission.
What are the monies they currently get from the county?
Goldsboro CRA, Mr. Bentley, I do not believe is receiving anything except
Main Street?
some small dollars from TDC, from Seminole County.
TDC, but
Yeah.
not the Main Street.
Yeah.
No, you get money from TDC
Yeah.
for Main Street.
Yeah, let me let Mr. Bentley speak to that. From TDC, yes, but from the county, no.
Okay. And thank you too for letting me speak. Yes, we, a week ago, we went to, the meeting with TDC, and of course, you know, you've been a board member, and Art there was that night. They awarded, $30,000 to Goldsboro and also downtown Main Street, but I was stopped, I guess it was Saturday, and I was told that the millage rate does not pass Wednesday at the 5:30 meeting. Downtown Main Street and Goldsboro Main Street won't be getting a dime. So we,
That doesn't have
That
anything to do
shouldn't-
with TDC.
so what now?
TDC money is not connected.
TDC money has nothing to do with the
No. I know that, but that's what they were telling me. Say all the TDC money will go to the indoor stadium. It wouldn't go to the main streets because they wouldn't be getting the increase that they thought they would be getting.
That would have to come back
Yeah.
to the TDC.
Okay,
So to answer your question, the $30,000 commitment.
okay.
Okay, and thank you.
So, Mr. Lassard, again, with the bulk of this conversation going to Goldsboro Main Street, how does this commission answer the downtown Main Street when they come to us and ask for like funding?
It's not funding to Main Street, it's funding to the CRA, and the answer to downtown Main Street would be the millions of dollars that the CRA has already put downtown.
Yeah, so Mr.
But, okay, hold on, let me talk. We're letting Main Street Goldsboro handle this money. The argument, I would say, for downtown Main Street would be, why aren't you allowing us to have this kind of funding and make these decisions?
Because we had a CRA board that did it. I mean, the Main Street, and let me make sure I'm clear on this. And my understanding is beyond the money that we allocate to Main Street, for Main Street, right now in the budget is $75,000 for the CRA thing. Main Street will be essentially the CRA board.
Correct.
That $75,000 will not be going to fund anything for Main Street.
That is correct.
Okay, now, With the downtown CRA, we approve the budget every year. I'm assuming we would do the same thing. Main Street would, as the CRA, would provide their budget, and then we would approve that budget.
Yes, and to
Okay.
Commissioner Austin's point, Mayor, I think it would be wholly appropriate for the issuance of those grants to be a consent agenda item potentially as they deploy those dollars. I think that's absolutely appropriate. It's how the CRA has functioned downtown today.
And the difference, and I like that idea that we have the final approval, is that the CRA is appointed by us. Main Street is not appointed by us.
That is correct.
So it's an independent organization we're asking to run this. So for us to maintain control, I think it's important that all the final decisions come back to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I put them here. So budget, Main Street. And I wanted to sort of echo what Commissioner Austin said about what are we going to spend the money on? Because if you think about the downtown CRA, the first sort of boost was us doing hardscape.
Infrastructure, correct.
And then the next real boost was when we started doing the reconstruction grants.
Correct.
To bring in the private money.
So, and to your, yes,
events are important, but they're not what creates the real investment.
and to your point, Mayor, the city has made some extensive, through CDBG, utility dollars, some extensive infrastructure. The infrastructure, and that was part of what we talked about with Channel 6 today, is the infrastructure, the underground, the subterranean improvements that the city has made over the years in Goldsboro have been pretty significant. So in short, this is a program that would allow those investments to be more visible to the community, I would say, both in the facade front, the festival front, the art front, things of that nature.
Any other questions?
And this is the same Main Street organization we have now
Correct. And-
that is prepared to take this on and has the resources and the time to commit to it.
And comma, in the parameters that the city needs to put in this enabling ordinance, that gives the city and Main Street a relationship that works. And I do think it's inherently important to have a severability clause within this enabling ordinance, to where if this doesn't work out, for whatever reason, Main Street decides they don't want to administer it, it was too much work, too much of an encumbrance on their organization, there are built into this ordinance with Ms. Green, opportunities for either party to sever the relationship. I don't anticipate that, but I do think a severability clause is certainly in order.
And we can never be sure what tomorrow brings.
Right.
Fact.
And then the other thing you asked about was rollover. I would think that would make sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That you roll over the funds.
It does. And-
Especially if they're trying to make a big investment in something that
And
can't be funded in 1 year.
Yeah.
one thing that this exercise has certainly brought to greater attention, I think, and this is Commissioner Wiggins was driving this, Mr. Bentley's driving this, others in the community have driven it, is there are a number of parcels in that yellow area that we're showing as the primary target for this program that present some very, very significant opportunities to the city, to Main Street, to Goldsboro as a whole. There's a parcel, any of you that are interested, there's a number of parcels in that corridor that the city could potentially acquire for tax benefits on the private sector side that would potentially really help the corridor. There's the ongoing conversation with the Urban League. I know that's continuing. Mr. Radzak and the city manager have been working with the Urban League. That's a significant piece of property. There's a trade that's occurring, Porzig Realty, at the corner there, the old, well, the dentist office is, but this is the Porzig, Derek Thomas, great local realtor that is really working in the Goldsboro area. harder than most have prospected in that area for a long time. So you're seeing some trades that are occurring in that corridor that will bring about new construction, bring about tax base for the city. So it's an exciting time. We just need to capitalize on it.
Okay.
So if that's the commission's direction, I'd like to sit down with Ms. Lindsay, really start putting pen to paper on regulations, parameters, how that relationship between the city and Main Street look, bring it back to the commission and have one more look at. And please be thinking about things like, should amplified music be allowed? Should facade grants for residential properties be allowed? Again, we do have homes in that corridor. Should they only be limited to commercial? Things of that nature. We'll have plenty of bites at that apple the next time around.
Do we need to, if Brady has to work with Ms. Green on this, I feel like we need to have a moment of silence for her or a prayer for her.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Mr. Lassard, for everything.
Don't forget, she's a labor attorney at heart, so there's a fair labor type suit being built here. But honestly, I would ask for Ms. Green's input on anything.
Absolutely.
Do you see anything we're missing as far as formulating that enabling ordinance to bring this back to the commission with the parameters built in? You may even have an exhibit of the Main Street bylaws within that ordinance. I would defer to you.
I recommend in the next week or so, we just sit down, now that we have some guidance from the mayor and commissioners, and go over and come back with some sort of template.
Great.
I've heard earmarked funds almost, that wanting some percentages for certain types of activity, talking about the corridor, what will be and where, if we're gonna have, festivals, where those will take place, so as to not negatively impact the
Scheduling
residences in that
priorities.
corridor and in that area. So within the next week, let's just go ahead and
Great.
schedule something so that we can get started on this.
Now, are we expecting all the expenditures to be just in the yellow zone?
Again, Mayor,
Or
that was what
When you
was-
brought up residential facades,
Well,
are you gonna do them on Goldsboro Boulevard, or are you gonna do them anywhere on Goldsboro?
So
And now you're out of money.
well, absolutely, and the constraints of budget have really, and that was what we worked with Main Street on, is where do we see that impact? Clearly, historic Goldsboro Boulevard is the primary thoroughfare there, but, so geospatially, perhaps it's properties that are adjacent to, and we'll build this into the ordinance, but I would envision double sides on some of those lots. You have some geometry on lots along that corridor that are dicey to be considered historic Goldsboro frontage, right? So I think we'll have to massage the language to allow for penetration off of the actual frontage.
And the intent would probably be, we at least focus there to start with, and
Right.
over
Correct.
time, we might spread
Very
further out.
defined priority,
Right.
so the initial corridor is the priority, grants and everything being focused in that area, and then including in the ordinance how it goes outward.
Correct.
Once that corridor
Yes.
is brought up to the intention.
And what I'd like to do is work with Ms. Green. This has primarily been, well, not primarily, solely driven internally. I don't see the need for an exhibit of a survey, for instance, Ms. Green. To survey that corridor, the city would probably be spending $60,000, $70,000 to survey the yellow box I'm showing you. I think language can be built in there that will give Main Street and the city guidance moving forward that's defensible from a recipient perspective moving forward. And I don't want to make it sound like we're attempting to do this on the cheap. I just think there's a
Better use
significantly.
of funds.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brady.
And Commissioner Thomas, I want to assure you, it was never meant for partying. We won't be doing that with any monies. This is meant to make Goldsboro look a better place, a shot in the arm to bring back the glory days, but we're not doing this so we can have a good time. We're doing this so we can have something that lasts forever. I promise you that. I wouldn't be a part of it if it's gonna be something like that.
Amen.
Commissioner Austin?
Yeah, amen, Austin.
We know what
Amen,
he
Austin.
We did also.
Okay, next is, we're not doing the grease and oil.
Staff would like to reschedule that to a future work session.
Okay. And, that was,
Yeah.
well, the, Who was going to do it?
Brent was gonna do the oil and grease program, but something came up, so he requested to reschedule that to a future work session. It's okay.
But I thought our oil and grease person was unavailable.
Yes, I mean, we could have given a presentation, but we felt more comfortable doing it while she was here, answering specific questions about certain businesses. Could have done it.
Yeah. The person in charge of the grease and oil program was not able to be here.
Okay, so when you're saying a future meeting, can we say at the next meeting? Because,
Brent's
okay,
shaking his
not,
head.
at the next
The
meeting.
22nd meeting, we could have it on the work session if you like.
At the work session, and then I asked, Ms. Green, I don't know if you were able to get that, you've had so, I mean, God, I've been sending you so much just myself. I asked for you to be able to formulate, some sort of, I'm thinking maybe a resolution or something, because how outdated our program manual was. And gosh, I have so many questions now, we won't even get to these today. But,
And that has not gone unnoticed.
Mhm.
I'm working with Brent and his team to get a final assessment as to what issues there are, if any, so that I can address your question, Commissioner. So that's where I'm at. I think this matter that's going to be on the next work session will help formulate that for me, because by that time, that presentation will be done.
and it's been almost like a month now, because I was asking for the commission and staff for immediate review, so that we wouldn't have any enforcement because of how outdated the information was. And I don't think that we should be still trying to do enforcement to stop or hinder business if we have seen that our program, our manual is outdated. So I'm kind of concerned about that, moving it for another 2 weeks, and then you still have businesses that cannot move forward because we're under this old, outdated, ill program manual.
Understood. I will work with Brent. If you can get me your presentation well before the next work session, then I would have something to be able to present and at least address Commissioner's question. And we'll work on that.
But I thought that night we directed staff to stop enforcing the old minimum tank size.
That was one particular item, but I was saying we shouldn't have enforcement until the entire.
Someone left their pen, but Brent Johnson, Public Works and Utilities Director. It wasn't, if I remember correctly, Mayor, the direction was not to stop enforcement. What the direction was for additional staff to review anything that was being requested of certain businesses. So if the oil and grease program, for example, the oil and grease program person, Hope, decided that someone needed to install, and this is just purely hypothetical, needed to install a 500-gallon grease trap, it needed to come to myself or Mike Cannon to review to determine whether or not that was in fact the case. If we were going to, in fact, suspend the program, I would recommend, because we don't want people that should have some type of program, that should have grease traps, that should have something to, as a point source treatment. We don't want people who should have it to not have to do it at all. So if we were going to suspend it, I would request that we suspend it, but upon implementation of the updated and improved program, then go back and require those folks to meet those requirements. That would just be my recommendation.
And that's what I was asking for, because I didn't know how we as the commission directed staff to suspend anything, but to come up with some kind of resolution that says yada, 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 what we can do within the law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My understanding was, we had said stop using, it was 750, I think was the old minimum size.
Well, and
Or whatever, we said stop using that tank size and start using the
yes, sir.
calculations as it's available under the state law.
Well, that's the problem. So, and that's where I mentioned at that previous meeting as well, that The state has a requirement, but the purpose of the oil and grease program, because as the governing agency, the governing body, which is this commission, you all have the authority to go above and beyond the minimum requirements of the building code. And that's what I alluded to last time. And that is the intent of the oil and grease program, is to go above and beyond what the plumbing code, which is the section of the building code, the plumbing code requires. That is not only to protect our plant, but to protect our collection system as well, which we plan to highlight as a part of the presentation, which I said we could have done tonight, but I just didn't know who was going to show up and ask questions specifically about their location or their business, and that's why we didn't feel comfortable giving it without Ms. Duncan being here.
Okay.
But we can certainly, that's the purpose of any oil and grease program, is to go above the requirements of, because if we were going to meet the minimum standards of the building code, we wouldn't need an oil and grease program. And so that's the purpose of the program.
Okay. Well, I agree. It's important that Hope is here.
All right.
I'm just going to
Thank
say,
you.
I think
Just stay up there, Brent. You ready to move on to the next one, Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
I guess. Is it any other questions about? Okay.
Okay, this is the renewal of the Waste Pro contract, and Brent Johnson, Public Works and Utilities Director, will present.
All right. Good to be back again. Solid waste agreement renewal discussion. If you all remember, we had this preliminary discussion regarding Waste Pro and a requested rate increase back in, I want to say June of this year. Does this work? Does this work? Oh, there we go. June of this year, we had a discussion where Waste Pro was requesting a rate increase to provide services. That rate increase, the reason that we brought it to you all as early as we did, and I know that was a question that you all had, was because the current agreement, and you're going to see later as we get into the presentation, expires next year. And so we are coming before you all for a preliminary determination on a couple of items, and I will discuss that as we go forward. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of current solid waste agreements so that you all know when that particular agreement was executed, why we ended up, or how we ended up with Waste Pro. And then we're going to talk about key renewal terms. Also, we're going to provide Waste Pro's justification. I have to make sure I'm specific in stating this is Waste Pro's justification on a proposed rate increase and how they're showing us their extenuating circumstances. And then what we're doing is, in the end, we're requesting commission feedback on the renewal option and possible rate increase as requested by Waste Pro. So a little bit of the background. We had a previous hauler. I'm not sure who the hauler was, but this is back in 2006 or so, prior to my coming to the city. But we canceled service with them due to their inability to provide that service. We ended up with Waste Pro, and that contract was executed on June 1st, 2007. It allowed for the initial period of 7 years, after which time you have four year extensions. We're currently in the third extension, which takes us from June of 2022 to May of 2026. Once again, we're here before you all in advance of 2026 because if commission so desires to move away from Waste Pro, or if commission decides that, listen, we don't want to give Waste Pro this, as you're going to see later, 22% increase, and if you decide not to give them that and Waste Pro decides that they are not going to provide service beyond 2026, city staff needs time to go through the process of getting a new waste hauler, which typically takes about a year based on my experience. So if commission does make that determination, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, which is why we're here today, trying to get some direction. And this, the bottom is just some of the services that Waste Pro provides. They provide residential, commercial collection, bulk pickup, kind of standard for waste hauling. Once again, the renewal terms. The original contract was 2007 in June. The first renewal was in 14. Second renewal is 18. Like I said, we are in our third renewal, which takes us from June of 2022 to May of 2026. And then their final renewal is June of 2026. Now, What's important to note is I know Waste Pro made a statement previously at that June meeting, and they stated that they could go beyond that 2030 date. And it is my opinion, as well as, which is even more important than my opinion, it's the city's legal counsel's opinion that they cannot go beyond that 2030 date. That is a hard date for terminating or ending services with Waste Pro, in which case we would go back out to bid for those services. As I mentioned, Waste Pro came to us with justifications for the rate increase. These were not created by city staff, but they're citing economic impacts related to labor shortages and led by labor and fuel. And you all received some correspondence, I believe, from Waste Pro, I believe over the weekend, Friday, I believe, I think it was Friday, where their attorney gave their opinion on whether or not they could do a rate increase, and they cited COVID, the effects of COVID, and some of these things mentioned here. So these are some of the things that they are alleging are contributing to their requested rate increase. So what were some of the previous concessions that we've given Waste Pro? I think it's important to note this because I know and understand that Waste Pro is requesting a rate increase, but the city has given previous concessions to Waste Pro, which includes an adjustment of the CPI cap from 3% to 4%. And they have been, so basically how that works is anything over 4%, they still get the 4% rate increase, which they have the last couple rate increases have gotten this 4%. We changed the CPI index to be more beneficial to Waste Pro. So they were under another index which didn't have as high of an adjustment or as high of a percentage adjustment. And so we did make that concession. And we also, as you all are probably aware, that they came back to commission requesting an increase for disposal costs. City staff considered that as a cost of doing business. However, they were awarded that increase. And so those are some of the concessions already provided to Waste Pro as a part of this agreement. Now the question comes about, how does this increase affect citizens and the rates? The current rate is $19.74. If you all, as a board, were to approve the 22.19% rate increase, that would effectively take the rate to $24.12. Now, if you'll notice, there's an asterisk next to that $24.12 because that does not include all of the annual CPI adjustments that they're going to be coming to commission requesting. If you factor in that, that'll take you by 2029 to over $28 per resident. That also does not include, that 28.22 does not include disposal rate increases that they're likely going to request as well. And we didn't work up the numbers on that. We just wanted to make sure, I mean, those are a little bit smaller, but yet and still we wanted to make sure that commission understood the magnitude of approving this rate increase and wanted to also look at it in totality when you talk about all of the other rate increases that they are going to be requesting throughout the remainder of this agreement. So this is a cost comparison of other cities. You'll see, so you have 2 by 1 by 1. What that means is the first number is the number of solid waste pickups. The next one is your recycling pickup times per week. And then the last one is your vegetation, how many times they pick up vegetation per week. And you'll see that if we do the 22.19%, well, let me digress a little bit. The numbers that you see under the rate category, those are that's what those cities charge their residents. You have some cities that pay their own disposal costs. So if you look at the disposal cost category, if it says city, that means that the city pays their own disposal costs, which means you now have to tack that disposal cost on to the monthly rate to determine what their actual monthly charge is. That's running about $4 on average is what we came up with. So if you take, for example, Castleberry at $18.38 and you tack on, because they're paying their own disposal cost, if you tack on that $4, they're effectively charging their residents $22.38 per month. So that just kind of highlights where we are now. I know that Waste Pro articulated to commission previously that if we were to go out, we'd likely get higher bids than what we're paying now. I can't speak to to the likelihood of that, I don't know. I'm not sure what the market would bear, but that is what we're currently paying right now.
Can you back up? To
Back up
where
the
it
slides?
showed- Yeah, back up the slide. So our current rate is 1974?
Yes,
Well, then I'm being overcharged.
on solid waste.
I'm looking at my utility bill, it's 2472.
We don't do, well, he don't do the billing, but that should be, we'll
don't
have to
have it
look
all
into it, Mayor,
memorized,
but
Tim?
it's 1974 is what we're charging.
What is your department doing with the extra $5, Mr. Johnson?
Well, I keep trying to fix these potholes, trying to make up for the low utility rates. Which we don't even want to discuss that, but
Okay, so is the 1974, is that what we charge residents, or is that what we pay Waste Pro?
that's what we pay Waste Pro.
Okay.
And that should be what we charge, because there's a direct pass. We don't pay, disposal costs are included. But we can get back to you, man.
That's
We'll
an
look
important,
into this.
that's an important question to get an answer to.
I'll double check. Only about 5 different people looked at this presentation and we all agreed, but I'll get back to
And
you.
the only reason I know that is last night I pulled up my bill and was looking at other cities to see what their bills were.
Okay, well, we'll get
So
back to you.
It's not like I normally know how much I pay.
Yeah, because I even confirmed this, like I said, 5 other people received this presentation and my solid waste manager confirmed it as well.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We need to put in the budget bifocals for some folks.
I already wear contacts.
So if it's really 24, then we'd be
This
talking about
changes-
it going up.
That changes a lot.
Then
More.
this changes everything, but I'll certainly send something
Okay.
out if that's the case. And so this is what we're looking at, and mind you, these are cities that have had long-term contracts with Waste Pro. A lot of these cities haven't gone back out for service. I know one did, I believe, Lake Mary or somebody recently. Tim doesn't want to fess up. Okay, I'll let him speak to it, but one city did recently go out, or in the last year or so, I believe, went out for service, or went out for a bid, and I'm not sure what that came back as. I had it, but I didn't bring it with me. And so what are the next steps? What we're looking for from commission, because like I said, we have to get ahead of that 2026 date. What we're looking for from commission is a consensus on whether we desire to proceed with Waste Pro at that 22.19% rate increase. And I would like to get everyone's determination on the contract end date. Like I said, they are of the opinion that that contract can go beyond 2030. It is my opinion and the city attorney's opinion that they cannot. And so, like I said, we would like to get a consensus on whether or not we can proceed with the 22.19% and on whether or not that 2030 is firm in commission's mind. And also, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that we also have Tim Dolan here from Waste Pro to answer any questions that you guys have from Waste Pro.
I do have a couple questions, probably Tim, but it might be the attorney who wrote the attachment that we got, because it's about that. So in that attachment, there's a section that talks about the CPI, and it says between 2021 and 24, the average annual percent increase more than tripled to 4.9%, with a single year high of 8%. Do you happen to know when that single year high of 8% was? Was it 2021 or closer to 24? In other words, was it right after COVID or later?
It was later. 23 and 24 were the 2 big spike years.
Okay. And another question, this is just a kind of an information thing, but he or she or whoever seems adamant about saying that SWANA cited Florida as particularly impacted here. And having looked at the documentation, the only thing I saw was Florida with some images that happened to be in Florida and a couple of footnotes, but it didn't read to me that Florida was particularly impacted by this.
Are we talking about the truck driver shortage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nationwide impact. So the impacts, and I want to make sure, we're saying that these things were extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't necessarily, in some cases they were unique to us, but they weren't necessarily unique to us. So everybody is suffering through the same economy equally. Okay, everybody's been impacted. but again, everybody's been impacted. So on the, the truck driver thing is a little more unique, because that impacts my industry, but it just impacts the truck driving industry in general, okay? That doesn't, well, but I mean, but again, that has a ripple effect down to everything, because groceries, furniture, everything gets transported from one place to the other, and if the cost of transportation goes up for items, then it goes up for everybody. So it was another driving force in what's turned into the inflation in the economy that we see today. I mean, we all, in the 2015 to 2020 era, and even earlier than that, we're used to the CPIs coming in every year at 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, and then all of a sudden that became 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, 6 point, and that was really over the last 4 years where the major spike took place. And then while things have come down, there's still, we mentioned the CPI that was on the board there. The CPI, the regular CPIU is tennis shoes, milk, cookies, consumer goods, okay? There are specific segmented CPIs for the garbage business. So there's a water, sewer, and trash index that is specifically geared towards the business, which has been running over 4% every year, which we get capped at the 4%. So there's different CPIs in there to grade different industries, so to speak.
Okay.
One other thing, if I could point out, the question came about with the rates that were for the contracts up on the board. Every one of those contracts were signed prior to 2021. Okay, they were signed actually a long time ago, but they were renewed probably in the 2020-21 range. So there are conversations going on with all of those cities right now, so that when their contract comes up for renewal, in many cases, that we're talking about pricing and how to get things to where they could possibly be. One example up there, they brought up Longwood was showed up there. They have the same service as you guys do. Their price, and we just had the first reading last week. Second reading is going to be next week, but their price effective October 1st is going to be $28.18 per unit, and then for the next 2 years, it goes up $2 a unit plus the CPI. Now that's also going to be over a 7-year period, which is a little bit longer. So we actually talked to that city about trying to ramp this up a little bit, because if we can, and this is why why I think that the contract period would be longer, but the longer that contract period can be, the longer we can stretch out and increase to kind of smooth it out. And again, that's what's on the table with them, is a 7-year extension with extensions possibly beyond that.
Okay.
So that's all part of the conversations, and we really haven't gotten into the details of the commercial mix versus the roll-off construction mix versus the residential mix. So these are all things that can be visited if we're allowed to negotiate with staff.
And did you happen to have any conversations subsequent to the last time we talked about this with Charlie Peoria and O Composting, just to see if O-Town Composting could save us money in the long run?
So I haven't had those conversations directly. I did see the presentation that they had. I did see a presentation from Winter Park. We're certainly, I don't see any savings jumping out and there, but it certainly can be part of the conversation if there's an interest in the city in pursuing that.
There was just a presentation today. Florida League of Cities just gave us one thing about a city in South Florida that's really been successful with that, and they've gone past the pilot program, and the citizens are really in love with it. So I'll send you that information. We can talk about that later. But
Okay.
I think my point here was that, the guy lost a little credibility with me when he was trying to say something that may not necessarily have been true about Florida being particularly impacted. But everything you just said to me, I trust. So thank you for that,
Yeah,
Tim.
we have, I mean, I could go on and on about labor and what we used to hire
You don't need
drivers
to.
for, and bonuses and retention and different things that's a whole new world.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna keep pushing.
Any other questions? Okay, so we're looking for direction as to whether we go to bid or pursue with.
Well,
And to
there-
me,
there's-
it comes down to, I mean, I'm 100% satisfied with the service.
Well,
Do we have a comfort level that whatever we do with them in terms of rates is,
Well, I wouldn't say at this point, Mayor, it's about whether we go out to bid. I think it's about whether or not we approve or we're willing to consider or approve that rate increase. If we aren't willing to agree to that rate increase, then it's up to Waste Pro to decide whether or not they're willing to continue to provide services beyond 2026. And that's really the question, because you may say, well, we don't want to do that rate increase, or maybe we want to do a smaller rate increase. And it's up to Waste Pro to make the determination on whether they want to continue to provide service.
Which I'm kind of leaning toward a little bit of being good to all of our citizens and maybe a compromise of slightly less of an increase. I still want Waste Pro, they do a fabulous job, but take that kind of a hit might be a bit much,
And Mayor, you are paying a little bit more. That's for administrative fees. I forgot.
especially for our, the
I
mayor.
vote for Art to continue paying more.
Yes.
Yes.
just me
No,
Yeah.
well, not
In
just
fact,
you,
charge
but-
him 30%, and the rest of us will pay you
So
20.
the additional monies beyond what was shown on that chart is for administrative fees.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Well, we need to know the true cost we're charging our residents and the true cost that other cities are charging their residents. And, you know, one of the questions for me is going to be, is our rate comparable to what others are paying? I know in other cities, they're using partial or fully automatic trucks to put the cans in. We haven't been able to do that because we use so many alleys. But, you know, I need to know that the rate we're paying is a fair rate compared to what other cities are paying.
Well,
And have a comfort level that, and I really question if going out to bid gets us a better price.
right.
Our product.
But you just made me think of something, Mayor. Some of those cities have containers.
Yes.
And we don't have those.
Yes.
And so that's part of their price compared to our price. So
Yes.
there's a whole lot here that isn't apples to apples.
And I had the discussion with staff today earlier, and we do get a great, I mean, I'm not advocating for Waste Pro once again, but we do get a great service from them for that price. I mean, I drive the streets all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, and you see people just throw out anything they want on the curb, and Waste Pro picks it up.
And they take it.
So that's an added benefit, so.
No, the service is unquestioned. The fact that they are actually located here in Sanford and pay taxes is without question.
And employ our citizens.
And employ our citizens. They're great partners with many events that the city does. That doesn't mean that we pay them more than we should be paying for this service. I'm not saying that for those that are listening.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting rich off of us.
Right, but they're not getting rich off of us, as we saw by those numbers. So there's a balance in all of this. I did the math earlier, I think 2030 is a fair calculation of when the contract absolutely 100% ends. If there's a consideration of extending the contract and ramping those fees, as Mr. Dolan mentioned, perhaps that's something we should to look at. So maybe it's not a drastic increase at first. Maybe it's a gradual. I don't know if that's possible or not, but it's what I understood him to say. So
Is it possible for us to extend?
Well, based upon the language in the contract, it ends in 2030. It doesn't mean that we can't negotiate some longer period and for a benefit to the city. The second part of that is, should mayor and commissioners, you decide to increase the rate, I do not believe it should be on the basis of Section 13 of extraordinary circumstances, because I don't see extraordinary circumstances having been met. By Mr. Dolan's own words, everyone is suffering from the same economy. So it sounds as though You know, we're talking about COVID. Now, had Waste Pro come in the midst of COVID and said, you know, half of our workforce is out, sick, et cetera, that would be another conversation. But using COVID 4 or 5 years later, using issues with regard to being able to get in goods and services, those are things that everybody who gets up every day is having to do. And I would not want to set that sort of precedent that that is what we're going to look to determine extraordinary circumstances. So if we want to make this based upon a business decision that we think long-term, quality of service, all those issues, after 2026, then let's have that conversation. But I do not think that the standard has been met to say that these that they've set forth are extraordinary circumstances. Everyone won't be able to get their Christmas gifts because of tariffs, right? This is just where we are.
But are we able to negotiate new rates under the contract and under our purchasing rules?
That I can get with purchasing. I think at this point, we need some direction, which I believe you've already given us. First, we need to figure out what are the true rates, right? Start there. Figure out what the true rates are, do comparisons as to other entities that are similarly situated, and then we can begin to have that conversation with Waste Pro about rates and moving forward. I would also want to add that with regard to some spikes in the CPI, all of that, Mayor and members of the commission, some of that has been cushioned by some of the good faith gestures that you've already given. The increase of the CPI, the disposal cost, not saying that that's a cost of business. So you've already cushioned some of that in your dealings with Waste Pro.
What else are we going up on? We've done, our water went up a little bit. We're talking about now the Waste Pro, possible fire assessment. What else is going up? Do we know?
Everything.
I'm not talking about eggs.
No, but that's where I was going with this too. This is not great timing to add one more increase to the citizens.
Yeah, I can't remember if I'm missing anything of what else is going up.
Well, I know that we're due at some point soon to come back before commission for a possible rate, which was already mentioned last year, a possible rate increase for utilities as well, again. So
We just did one.
that was almost a year ago.
That was, yeah, it was just the other day.
Tim has something else to say, but are we, because from a timing perspective here, I'm thinking about, Tim, you raised a good point about the potential impact of tariffs, but we don't know exactly what they are yet. So one of my thoughts was if we did have an opportunity to discuss rates before the end of the contract, but after we have a better sense of how the tariffs are hitting us.
So just a couple of things. First of all, what we're talking about, I mean, we have a contract through, I think, June 1st of '26.
Yes.
So we're not talking about making any changes until then. So this is a bit off in the distance. The other thing, and I don't know if there's terminology in there right now, but there's something in there called basically like a favored nations clause. Okay, which basically we can put language in the agreement that if I enter into an agreement that's more favorable with another municipality in the county afterwards, then the agreement can come back and be revisited. Now, that's not going to happen. I'm just telling you that I spent a lot of time making sure that, you know, everybody's working under the same set of rules and you know, whatever. But it is legal language to put in where, you know, if you felt that I offered a better deal to another city going forward in a renewed agreement, that, you know, we could come back and look at would that predicate a decrease in pricing to the city. So there is some language in there that's pretty common in these agreements that does offer a protection if there's concern about looking off into the future. And again, what I'm talking about doing, and again, we've not really gotten very deep into the agreement. We talked about, you know, landfill increases versus CPIs. Those can be segmented so that there is no question about what applies to each. Where you apply a landfill increase straight to the landfill component, you apply a CPI to the operating component of the contract. Again, there's the mix of what you charge commercial versus temporary roll-off versus residential, and the ability to stretch that out or to smooth that out over several years based on the length of the term of the contract. So there's an awful lot of things that can be discussed that haven't been gotten into in great detail yet.
Okay, Commissioner Austin, do you have something?
Yeah, I would like somebody giving me the numbers of how many residences you service, so I can figure out what that total amount is. Because another aspect to this is some municipalities actually don't even charge their residents. They just, it's just part of their taxes. And so I'm just curious what the total amount is that's paid to ServPro, and what that looks like.
So there's two ways generally we see of billing with these type contracts. One is what you're doing right now, which is people get their on their water bill, they get billed every month and pay every month. As you heard Mayor Woodruff in the Seminole Leadership meeting the other day, when Brian Sackett, the mayor for Longwood, was talking about how half of their residents aren't on the water system, and half of them are, or I think it's about 20% that aren't on the water system, and they have great difficulties in collecting the money because they don't control the water in that particular city. And now when your water gets shut off, well, your garbage bill gets paid pretty quickly. In that particular instance, they're actually considering something that Seminole County does, I believe Castleberry does, which it's an ad valorem tax, that basically you get on your property tax, and it bills you for your garbage service for the year. That's just another way of managing the billing and collections, where
That's
you
what I
attach it to somebody's property.
But Seminole County, you pay the whole year at one time.
Yeah, that's
Right.
It's on your tax bill.
Right, so that just becomes really a decision, for you all to decide how you want to move forward with that, or change or keep it the same. But those are predominantly the two billing systems that are set up.
All right. Well, I think we're willing to negotiate with new rates. I think that it is calling some of the changes that have occurred extraordinary circumstances, but, in retrospect, what were we thinking, how many years ago when we wrote the contract, that there wasn't room in the contract to negotiate rates? Because I'm concerned that if we don't do it under what's in the contract, we don't have the ability to change rates. So.
And another thing that we have to consider as well, when we bring you all back that more detailed comparison of other cities, we have to be mindful of the fact that commercial oftentimes offsets the residential rate that you pay. And so we may bring you, we don't want to bring you a city like Longwood, who doesn't have the amount of commercial that we have. We don't want to bring you Orange City, which is much smaller and doesn't have the commercial. So we're going to try our best to do apples to apples, because we do have a really large commercial base that should then offset that residential rate, because they don't get rich off of residential, as you mentioned. It's the commercial where they really make the money, but the commercial also offsets that residential rate. And so we'll do our best to bring back to you all similar makeup, not necessarily size, because we're the biggest city in Seminole County, but a similar makeup with respect to percentage of commercial versus residential.
And to answer, Mayor, to answer your question, Section 13 of the contract does not say that City Commission that you all can't increase it. What it says is this is the rate, don't disturb it, but we're going to give you this limited out to disturb it if you can establish extraordinary circumstances. But it doesn't prohibit us from having these negotiation conversations, but it was really just to make sure that there was continuity and that there was a sense of consistency with regard to the rates.
All right.
So we can do that without setting this new term for what's extraordinary.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tim. And Brent.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing else unless the commission had any questions about meeting agenda items tonight. Staff can provide any information or answer any questions for y'all.
Are we at that point where
Do you have any questions? Well, start off with, do you have any questions on the agenda?
I would like to mention that consent B for the toy drive is being pulled from the agenda tonight as well.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy.
My consent E is Pints and Paws.
Christmas toy drive car show.
I've got that as B.
B is toy drive.
Is that what you said, B?
Yeah.
Oh, I just can't hear them. All right, thank you. B is in boy. Got it. I thought there was something I wanted to. I do have a couple of questions. One on A, which is the battalion chief. That would, the temporary battalion chief, that starts immediately.
Oh, you're on 10A.
110A.
Ronnie McNeil, Fire Chief. Yes, that's for EMS Battalion.
Mhm.
He's retiring in April, so we're trying to get somebody to shadow him to be able to get that. He's the Ryan White officer for the fire police, basically the whole city, so he has
Okay.
a lot of different roles.
Okay, and so, but, so that starts essentially immediately? So,
We'll have to, yeah, we're gonna still post it, get interviews. It'll be October, November-ish time. By
Okay.
the time they get on.
all right.
Yeah, we haven't made any
Okay, I was looking at
move forward.
the September to April timeframe as,
I think
okay.
you have to go
No.
through a promotional process, don't you,
Okay.
Chief?
Yeah.
All right.
So it takes time.
Yeah, we
Okay.
still gotta post it and everything else.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And then, Brady, are you still here? The consulting services on the hotel?
Yes, Mayor Commission, Brady Lassard with Economic Development.
Why is that us in Seminole County?
So this was an initiative brought to us by their TDC folks, Guy Kunha in this case. And this is to evaluate the submarket out around the airport. They had asked us to participate on updating a study that predates my being here. City manager and I agreed to that about 3 months ago now. Why is the interlocal required?
No, why,
Why are we doing it?
why at the airport
Yeah.
participating in it?
Mayor, that, my proposal was that if nothing else, the airport should have been part of a tri-party funding of the agreement. That was not offered by the airport.
Okay, and, your honest assessment of whether it's our job to do a study like this for a hotel? Don't hotels do this themselves?
I would say that this makes us a partner with Seminole County as they evaluate significant improvements that they're looking at. The indoor facility that was mentioned earlier, there's a couple horizontal improvements that they're looking to make out there. We were asked by the county to participate in that as they evaluated the whole area. So my primary default position is the private sector should always shoulder this. In this case, the county is using it as part of an overall marketing effort that they're making as they evaluate both the indoor complex and the, I can share with you some of the other improvements that are being looked at Boomba off the record.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
What do you mean by sub-market?
The submarket, in this case, Commissioner Austin, this dovetailed off a study that was done, I believe, in
okay.
2021 for the particular Lake Mary
Right.
corridor
Okay.
adjacent to the airport market. But is there a primary beneficiary as the airport? Absolutely.
So what's done with the results of this? Are we gonna go out and solicit hotels with this?
That's Seminole County's effort, is they're evaluating a number of offers that have come in, unsolicited proposals, I would qualify them as, that are looking to develop property that will be within, on our tax base, adjacent to the indoor complex, as well as some improvements that are being looked at the Boomba complex on some excess property that the county owns in that vicinity.
So this isn't necessarily about a hotel at the airport?
On property, sir, no.
Okay, because that doesn't benefit us at all, right?
Even if it's on the property, even though it's on airport property, we would get property taxes from it, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, because it's not an aeronautic.
But this particular look is, as you come around East Lake Mary Boulevard, as you pass Boomba, continue heading what would end up being north at that indoor complex area.
Have we ever done a study like that for downtown? Because so many people think we should have a hotel downtown, but I don't know that I agree with that.
So, Commissioner, I will share with you that the city has volumes and volumes of studies that have been done in the years past. One of those was a downtown study. The mayor probably remembers this was primarily an evaluation of the courthouse site or the parking lot that the city owns directly east of the courthouse.
Okay.
That assessment was made as well.
Okay.
Okay, so the intent on this, though, would be to go shop it to hotels to bring one in.
Correct.
Okay.
With the primary driver of that effort being the county float on that indoor facility is significantly north of $20 million, and some of the horizontal improvements that they're looking to make around Boomba. Boomba, by the way, named the #1 baseball complex for youth sports in America. Newsweek just came out with that about 3 or 4 months ago. The driver of Boomba to heads and beds is massive for Seminole County.
The reason why I asked what I asked is I know there's already a hotel that's near completion.
Correct.
And others supposedly coming.
So one of the
talking about hotels out there for a very.
I know.
Well, I will share with you, that was one of the primary goals I had, and I shared this with the mayor when I came on board here, was the horizontal improvements, the subterranean improvements for that hotel had been made many years ago. It sat dormant.
Right.
We were able to put them in touch with both the Allegiant folks, contacts we had with Allegiant, and as well as with the Boomba operating staff. They had some concerns about the market out there. Allegiant and Boomba were able to allay their fears, so they went vertical. And that is, they're looking to open that in November-ish, December of this year. So that'll bring 115 rooms online. Beautiful property.
Right.
Tilt wall construction, which was interesting to me, but that implies that it's built to last, and, and the investments that they'll make on the interior finishes are stronger than one might expect.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else on agenda items? Okay.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna do it because you guys did an amazing job last year, but I just wanna make sure that we do it this time. I believe it was the mayor and Cindy that really broke down the millage rate, and since we're gonna be doing the first public hearing, I think Cindy quarterbacked it, and she talked about what the tax rate is used for and how you use it to calculate the property tax. And then the mayor, you came back and broke it down because people were confused about the city of Sanford having the highest tax rate versus how much taxes that we're paying, and people love to say that part. So I was just hoping that we again clarify for the public.
I do
about
have that chart.
Okay.
Yeah, Cindy has a PowerPoint presentation prepared.
I know, they
my
did
favorite
last
chart.
year, I just wanted to make sure that, sometimes you can put it up there or whatever, but we pulled it out last time and really broke it down so that the public understood the difference.
We have moved up a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, well, anything else, Commissioner Brett?
Yes. So, and maybe, Attorney Green, you can shed light on this and tell me if, our seat as a commission overstepped. been working really hard with Mr. Lassard and the business owner of 1219 Park Avenue, and they went before planning and zoning, historic preservation. I was informed that the approval was overturned at the last planning and zoning meeting. I'm really concerned about that, how that was overturned. What is the city's commission's stance now? Like, what's in our authority? Help shed light on that.
Absolutely. So it was not overturned.
Okay.
The board, there was a motion made during the board meeting to reconsider the previous decision. That was seconded, it went forward. There is a procedure which at the next meeting, if there is a belief that it is necessary, if there's a motion and a second, then an action that has been taken can be reconsidered. It was continued to the next meeting to address that motion. I can tell you that the basis for the motion for reconsideration in part had to do with whether there was a clarification as to what the conditions were as part of the original decision. If you've listened to the recording, there was one of the board members was concerned that board members on the dais were maybe over talking on staff, and it wasn't clear as to what conditions were. And so that particular board member moved to reconsider. It was passed. So it has not been denied. It has not been thrown out. Now, what I will also say is there is an order that has been drafted that sets forth, in my view, what the clear conditions are. I don't believe that the property owner is negated from, and Eileen is here, from signing that order, which I believe clarifies what the testimony was and what the conditions were. And that may be a streamlined way to address it, but it has not been overhauled or denied or reversed.
Okay, but it was originally approved.
Yes.
Okay, so where are we, like, in just layman's term,
We're
where are
gonna
we
let the
stand?
process ride itself out. At
Okay.
the next meeting, there will be discussion and determination as to whether to further reconsider the ruling, whether it will be approved or denied. I don't know where the board is gonna go with that.
Okay.
From my view, because I was present at that meeting, it seemed more of wanting clarification as to what exactly transpired, what exactly were the conditions that were agreed to or that were to be imposed with regard to this development.
Okay.
Again, there's an order which sets that forth. Eileen, if you want to speak to this issue at all.
Does this hold up the process for development? Like,
Ultimately, it slows it down, but it slows it down to the next meeting. And in my view, to clarify exactly what the conditions are and what is going to be the terms and obligations may be worth it.
So my understanding was the motion to reconsider did pass.
Yes,
At the next meeting, they will be considering the development.
the application, yes.
Okay, all right,
was already approved?
Yes.
right. Did you listen to the meeting?
No, I have a full time.
All right,
And-
I was
and this is
asking so I'd
something-
know whether to say something else about it.
And this is something that mayor and commissioners, you also continue to have a right to do, right? You can always, at the next meeting, not that this is something you do arbitrarily, but there is a process for which to move to reconsider a previous decision. This is what the board did. It will be determined at that next meeting.
But only if you were present at the previous vote.
Now, there's no limitation. Anyone
none?
who's, because this entire application
Uh-huh,
will be adjudicated, information will be presented.
uh-huh. No, I'm saying, maybe I didn't ask it right.
I know what your question is.
Okay,
Our rules specify that it's someone on the prevailing side or somebody who was absent.
oh, so
Okay.
it can be somebody that was
Our
absent.
rules. I
Okay.
don't know, and I sent you this question, do those rules apply also to the planning and zoning?
As to whether, I'm sorry, make sure I understand your question.
Okay,
So-
our specific rules for the city commission meetings are, it can be someone on the prevailing side or somebody not at the meeting. I don't know if P and Z has their own rules or if the rules adopted for this board flow down to all other boards.
I did not see that in the P and Z rules as to that aspect, but I will clarify that way before the next meeting.
All right. But in my opinion, the PNC jumped to a decision without going to the time of clarifying if there were conditions. Mr. Chase did an excellent job, I thought, of presenting his case, and in many cases, cleared up a lot of the questions that I think there were. And so that's what was going into development order. My guess is either way, this might have gone back to P&Z anyway. So I think it's probably.
Ultimately, it would
this may be
likely,
faster.
right, and ultimately, it would have likely gone back to P and Z, because if there was confusion or misclarification as to what the conditions are, and then the property owner begins the development and starts working with staff, and then it becomes apparent that there's confusion, then that's gonna slow down the process, because then it's gonna have to go back to P and Z for clarification as to what the conditions are. Ultimately, I think this is the most efficient way to handle it, which is if there's some confusion or miscommunication or disagreement as to what the conditions are, at this next meeting, it will be clarified.
Makes sense to me. My question is how do we prevent this from happening in the future, to where if it gets approved, and how did we miss all of the conditions and everything? I mean, in order to approve it,
I don't think that the conditions, it's very important and I know everyone's busy. This was an anomaly situation. I think it has a lot to do with educating the board, which I am doing. But there was a lot of talking over. There was a lot of not digesting. There was a lot of staff is presenting and information being, or staff was in the middle of presentation when a motion was being made.
Oh my goodness gracious.
It
I'm
was
gonna have to
not
go
the
listen
most
to that.
impressive
Right,
P&Z
and
meeting.
so
What'd you say?
It was not the most impressive P&Z
Oh, okay.
meeting that I.
Was this the last one?
the one
One
before
before that.
Oh, okay, because I listened to the
So
last
if,
one. I didn't hear
so
it.
when you walk out of that forum, and the question is, so what actually got passed?
Right.
It was indicative and the result of what transpired at the meeting. Again, it is not the job of the boards to rubber stamp what staff recommends, what staff says. I do recommend you listen, at least so that you can adjudicate that and then make an educated decision. And when there's talking over, there's interruptions, et cetera, you walk out with what was left with. And that's not the fault of the property owner.
Right.
And, there's inconvenience there, but ultimately, I think this process working out the way it will be very clear as to where the property owner will be moving forward to.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner?
No, sir.
I have nothing. Mr. Austin?
I have nothing.
Mr. Thomas?
Minutes?
Yeah, those are a work in progress.
Okay. Just
Are
want to
you
make
still
sure I
in the
didn't miss
office by yourself?
anything.
Yes, I'm still by myself.
She is still by herself, and we're giving her lots of grace.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. And, how much time do I have? Oh, I got lots of time. First of all, I'm wondering if we should sort of take the temperature of the commission on the, fire assessment.
Yes, we should.
So I'm expecting, we have all seen lots of emails, I imagine. I don't know how y'all have responded to them. I have, as usual, tried to do my best to explain the facts, which in many cases was taken as advocacy. And I guess I'm being sort of selfish here. If we're not, I have to be careful here, because we're at a work session.
Yes.
How much discussion should we have before we allow however many people want to come speak about it speak. Do we want to have a little conversation amongst ourselves tonight before public comment? Or do we want to hold that until after public comment?
I think before, because I think questions may be answered from listening to the commission asking questions, because I think we've all seen the emails and social media posts and one-on-one conversations. And then also, we are residents too. Sometimes people forget that, who would have to pay the fee as well. I liked when you talked about your water bill, because that increase and that Waste Pro, you're not exempt from it
Right.
as the mayor. So I think having that question having that conversation prior to may eliminate some of the redundant same.
Okay.
Followed by, of
Let's-
course, additional discussion when we come to a vote.
Yes.
Much like my complaints for the last 600 years I've been up here, we don't communicate well what we're doing, why it's being done, how it's being done, and what got us here. So yes, I think there should be some discussion before, maybe to help some understand better, maybe to help ease some of the negativity towards it. But that's,
And add as much clarity as we
yeah,
can.
it's just,
I told y'all it was a hard sell.
I'm not even worried,
Get
I'm not,
people to understand it.
yeah, I'm not even worried about selling it, I'm worried about, the misperceptions and stuff. People don't understand that we are required to have a balanced budget every year. We are not the federal government. We're not the state. And so I just think there's some basic misperceptions along the way. Maybe some discussion ahead of time. I had some ideas. I was going to ask Attorney Green and Assistant City Manager ahead of time. I had some ideas in my head of how I wanted to do some things this evening, and I still don't know how I'm going to do them. But I just, all of this is very hard, and sometimes it's even hard for us up here. So if you're not up here every meeting, if you're not at every workshop, if you're not taking additional classes like some of us have done, or a lot of us have done, if you're not going to additional conferences like a lot of us have done, you really don't grasp all of this. And so it's quick and easy to make these brash judgments of what's going on and make these brash decisions of why this is bad or that's good or this
That
is.
seem brash to the public.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think we should have discussion ahead of time. I would like to have some staff here to maybe ask some questions, and then proceed.
Okay. All right.
Definitely agree with that, Commissioner.
Tomorrow, Pamela and I and Main Street and some people from the CRA are meeting with a company called Retail Strategies. I mentioned that I went to their session. We're specifically looking at, they have basically a small business training program that we want to look at possibly offering to our businesses. And the CRA may be able to fund that for us. It's $30,000 a year for however many businesses want to participate. So it's all online. I previewed some of it. My comment to the person was, I'm a teacher. I've seen lots of really bad programs. And before I share this with anybody, I want to see it myself.
Yeah.
So that, I'm continuing to try to come up with some modifications for what we're doing with the air show. That remains to be seen how that turns out. Who's taking lead on making sure we're signed up for sofas and suds?
I guess that will be me, Mayor.
Okay.
The commission should have a sofa.
Go ahead. It's not for y'all to do.
I think it's great that our staff participates in that.
So we'll have two sofas this year.
Elected officials
Next year. Next year.
Tony, we'll
Next
put
year.
our sofa up against yours.
You can sit in this chair.
We'll
I don't
we'll
know.
get another sofa, we'll put up ours against yours.
If we're out there, it may turn into demolition derby.
Well, that very cool, could well be.
If I'm out there, you better have the fire department on.
And that's all I have. So unless anyone has anything else, we're adjourned.
Okay.
Great job, Craig.
Thank you, Mr.
Just to find out what happened. If I